My name is Caroline Foster and I'm 38 years old. 6 months ago, I found out my husband was cheating. I didn't confront him. I didn't file for divorce. Instead, I did something far more calculated. I faked my own death and attended my own funeral to see who would show up and what secrets would finally surface. What I witnessed in that church destroyed me more than the affair ever could, because the woman crying over my casket wasn't just his mistress. She was my sister. And what she said during her eulogy revealed a betrayal that had been happening for 15 years, right under my nose, involving not just my husband but my entire family. This is the story of how I died to discover the truth and came back to life to burn it all down. Let me take you back to March 2024, to a gray Tuesday afternoon in Portland, Oregon, and the moment I found the text message that would end my life as I knew it. I wasn't snooping. That's what everyone asks. How did you find out? Were you looking through his phone? No. I was making dinner. My husband, James Foster, had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he took a shower. We'd been married for 12 years. Together for 15. High school sweethearts from a small town outside Seattle who'd made it work through college, career changes, 2 cross-country moves, and every challenge young marriage throws at you. Or so I thought. The phone buzzed. I glanced at it while chopping vegetables. The preview on the lock screen said, "I miss you. When can we see each other again?" She doesn't suspect anything. The contact name was saved as J. Miller, contractor. My hands stopped moving. James owned a property development company. Contractors texted him constantly. This shouldn't have been strange. But something about the tone. The "I miss you." The "she doesn't suspect." I picked up the phone. It wasn't locked. James never locked his phone around me. Why would he? We had nothing to hide. I opened the message thread. What I found wasn't just an affair. It was a complete double life, documented in obsessive detail over hundreds of messages spanning 3 years. Photos. Hotel receipts. Plans for weekends when he'd told me he was at construction sites. Intimate details about their relationship, their future together, their frustration at having to keep things secret. And then I saw the name at the top of the contact. The real name, listed in the notes section where he'd saved her actual information. Jessica Foster. Not Miller. Foster. My sister. I put the phone down exactly where I'd found it. Walked to the bathroom. Locked the door. Sat on the edge of the tub while the shower ran in the next room and my husband sang off-key to some 90s rock song, completely unaware that his entire world was about to detonate. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't confront him. I sat there and thought. Jessica. My younger sister by 4 years. The artistic one, the free spirit, the one who'd moved to Portland 2 years ago to find herself after a bad breakup in Chicago. She'd been staying with us for 6 months when she first arrived. Just until I find a place, she'd said. James had helped her find an apartment. Helped her move in. Kept helping her with odd jobs, repairs, landlord disputes. She's family, he'd said every time I questioned how much time he was spending on her problems. We have to help her get on her feet. I'd thought he was being a good brother-in-law. He was being a good liar. For 3 years, while I worked 50-hour weeks as a corporate accountant, while I came home exhausted and made dinner and asked about his day and believed every word, he'd been sleeping with my sister. In our bed when I was traveling for work. In her apartment on Tuesday nights when he said he had late construction meetings. In a cabin they'd rented in the Columbia River Gorge for a romantic anniversary getaway that happened the same weekend I'd been at my father's bedside in the hospital. I read it all. Every message. Every lie. Every moment of intimacy they'd stolen while I was building what I thought was our life. The shower turned off. I stood up, washed my face, and walked out of the bathroom. James came out wrapped in a towel, smiling. "Hey babe, what's for dinner?" I looked at him. This man I'd loved since I was 17. This man I'd built everything with. "Chicken stir-fry," I said. 15 minutes. Perfect. "I'm starving." He kissed me on the forehead and went to get dressed. I went back to the kitchen and continued chopping vegetables like my hands weren't shaking. That night, we ate dinner together. Watched a movie. He fell asleep on the couch with his head in my lap. I stroked his hair and planned his destruction. Because I'd seen something else in those messages. Something that went beyond the affair. They were planning to tell me. Not out of guilt. Not to come clean. They were waiting for the right time to break the news that they were in love, that they wanted to be together, that this had just happened, and they hoped I'd understand. The right time, according to their texts, was after my upcoming promotion. I was up for senior finance director at my firm. It came with a 40% raise and stock options. The decision was happening in 2 weeks. They were waiting for me to secure the bag so James could divorce me, take half, and start his new life with my sister funded by my success. Jessica had even joked about it in one message, at least when she finds out, she'll be able to afford a good therapist face with tears of joy. I read that message 5 times. The laughing emoji burned into my brain. That's when I decided. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of a dramatic reveal where they got to play the tortured lovers and I got to be the heartbroken wife. I was going to disappear. And I was going to watch what happened when they thought I was gone. The plan came together over 3 sleepless nights. I'd been handling our finances for 12 years. I knew every account, every asset, every password. I started moving money. Small amounts. $500 here. $1,000 there. Transfers to an account James didn't know existed, one I'd opened years ago for emergency savings and never mentioned. Over 2 weeks, I moved $47,000. Our entire emergency fund plus my separate savings. I created a new identity. Not legally, I'm not a criminal. But I rented a storage unit 2 hours away under my maiden name. Started moving things there. Clothes. Documents. Photographs. Everything I'd need. I told my boss I needed a leave of absence. Family emergency. He approved it immediately. I'd never taken time off in 8 years. Then I planned my death. Not a real death. I'm not insane. But a disappearance so convincing that everyone would assume the worst. I chose a hiking trail. Eagle Creek Trail in the Columbia River Gorge. Narrow paths, steep cliffs, plenty of accidents over the years. On a rainy Saturday in April, I told James the first was going hiking alone. I need to clear my head, I said. Work has been stressful. He barely looked up from his phone. Probably texting Jessica. Be safe, he said. I drove to the trailhead. Signed in at the ranger station, important that there was a record. Hiked 3 miles in. Found a spot near a cliff edge. Left my jacket on a rock near the edge, partially hidden by brush, like it had fallen. Dropped my phone in the river below, but not before sending a weird, ominous text to James. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Don't look for me. Then I hiked back down a different trail, got into the car I'd parked a mile away the night before, and drove to the extended stay hotel where I'd checked in under my maiden name. By evening, James had called the Rangers. By midnight, search and rescue was out there with dogs and helicopters. By Monday morning, the local news was covering the story. Portland woman missing after disturbing text message, jacket found near cliff. By Wednesday, the police were calling it a likely suicide. I watched it all from a motel room in Salem, Oregon, scrolling through Facebook and news sites and eating takeout Chinese food. James gave an interview to the local news. Standing in our driveway, eyes red, voice shaking. Caroline was under a lot of pressure at work. I didn't realize how much she was struggling. I should have seen the signs. He looked genuinely destroyed. He should have been an actor. My sister posted on Facebook, I can't believe this. Caroline, if you're out there, please come home. We love you so much. 161 reactions. 43 comments of support. I screenshotted it for later. The search went on for a week. They didn't find a body, obviously, but they found my jacket, my phone's last location, and the text message. The medical examiner declared it a presumed death by suicide. And my family planned my funeral. I want to pause here and acknowledge how insane this sounds. How cruel it was to put my parents, my friends, through this. I know. But I also know what I saw in those messages. I know what they were planning. And I needed to see who they really were when they thought I was gone. The funeral was held 2 weeks after my disappearance at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Portland. I drove there in my rental car, wearing a black wig, dark glasses, and clothes I'd bought at Goodwill. I sat in the back row. The church was packed. Over 200 people. Co-workers. Friends from college. My parents in the front row, my mother sobbing into my father's shoulder. James sat next to them. Black suit. Red eyes. Holding my mother's hand. And next to James, equally destroyed, was Jessica. The service started. My boss gave a eulogy about my work ethic, my dedication, my kindness. My college roommate told a story about a road trip we took to California. My father tried to speak but broke down after 3 words. My mother held him as he cried. And then Jessica stood up. She walked to the podium slowly, like each step was painful. She was wearing a black dress I'd helped her pick out for a job interview last year. She looked at the casket, empty, of course, but draped with flowers, and started to speak. Caroline was more than my sister. She was my best friend. I gripped the pew in front of me. She was the person I called when I needed advice. When I was struggling. When I didn't know what to do with my life. She paused. Wiped her eyes. She took me in when I had nowhere to go. She supported me when everyone else had given up on me. True. I had. And I betrayed her in the worst possible way. The church went silent. I leaned forward. Jessica looked at James. He was staring at her, eyes wide, shaking his head slightly. She looked back at the crowd. I had an affair with her husband. Gasps. Audible, sharp gasps from every corner of the church. My mother's head snapped toward Jessica. My father stood up. James dropped his face into his hands. It started 3 years ago, Jessica continued, her voice steady now, like she'd been holding this in for so long that releasing it was a relief. And it never stopped. We were planning to tell her. We were waiting for the right time. And now she's gone, and I'll never be able to ask for her forgiveness. She broke down sobbing. Real sobs. Gut-wrenching. My mother stood up and slapped her. The sound echoed through the church. "Get out," my mother said. Her voice was ice. "Get out of this church. Get out of our family." Jessica stumbled backward. Someone from the church staff moved toward her. But she wasn't done. "There's more," she said. My father moved toward her. "Jessica, stop." "Not here." "She deserves the truth," Jessica said. "Even if she's gone, she deserves the truth." "What truth?" my mother demanded. Jessica looked at my father. Dad knew. The church went silent again. I stopped breathing. "What?" my mother whispered. "Dad found out 6 months ago. He caught us together at James's construction site. We begged him not to tell Caroline. We said we'd end it." My father's face went gray. "We didn't end it," Jessica said. "And Dad kept our secret because he didn't want to destroy the family." My mother turned to my father. "Tom?" He couldn't look at her. "You knew?" Her voice broke. "You knew and you said nothing?" "I thought they'd stop," he said quietly. "I thought if I gave them time, they'd come to their senses." "Our daughter is dead," my mother screamed. "She killed herself because her world was falling apart and you knew why and said nothing?" The church erupted. People were standing, shouting, crying. I sat in the back row, invisible, watching my family detonate. And then James stood up. "It's not just that," he said. Everyone turned to him. Caroline knew. I went cold. "What?" Jessica said. "She knew about us. She found the messages 3 weeks ago. I saw the phone logs, she read everything. That's why she did this. That's why she killed herself." He was crying now. Real tears. I was going to end it. I was going to tell Jessica it was over and beg Caroline for forgiveness. But before I could, she was gone. He looked at the casket. "I killed her. We all killed her. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life." The church was silent except for crying. My mother collapsed into a pew. My father stood frozen. Jessica sank to the floor. And I stood up and walked out. Nobody noticed. They were too consumed by their own grief, their own guilt. I got in my car and drove back to the motel. Sat on the bed. And finally cried. Not because of the affair. Not because of the betrayal. But because James was right. I had known. And instead of fighting for my marriage, for my family, I'd run. I'd chosen revenge over resolution. And now I had to live with that too. I stayed dead for 3 more weeks. Watched from a distance as everything fell apart. My mother filed for divorce from my father. James moved out of our house. Jessica checked into a psychiatric facility for suicidal ideation. The guilt had broken her. My friends held memorials. Posted tributes. Got tattoos of my favorite quote. And I sat in a motel room eating cereal and watching it all unfold on social media like a reality show I'd created and couldn't turn off. The guilt was suffocating. But I still wasn't ready to come back. Because I'd learned something in those messages, something Jessica had said in her eulogy that nobody else had caught. Dad knew 6 months ago. But the affair had been going on for 3 years. Which meant for 2.5 years, nobody knew. So how did my father find out? I went back through the messages I'd screenshotted before I disappeared. Found one from 8 months ago. Jessica to James, your dad called me. He knows. He saw us at the restaurant last week. He wants to meet. Not my dad. James's dad. Robert Foster. James's father had known for 8 months. And if he knew, who else knew? I started digging. Called in favors from former colleagues. Hired a private investigator with cash from my hidden account. What I found destroyed what was left of my old life. James's father had known about the affair for 8 months. He'd told James's mother. They'd decided not to tell me because, and I quote from an email the PI uncovered, Caroline is too valuable to James's business. If they divorce, he loses half of everything, including her income potential. Better to let this run its course. James's business was failing. Had been for 2 years. My income was the only thing keeping us afloat. His parents knew. They calculated that keeping me in the dark was worth more than my dignity. And there was more. The promotion I was up for? The one they were waiting for? James had already consulted a divorce attorney. The plan was to file papers 1 week after my promotion was announced, claim irreconcilable differences, and take half of everything, including the signing bonus and stock options. He'd been planning this for 6 months. The affair wasn't a mistake. It was an exit strategy. And everyone, James, Jessica, his parents, eventually my father, had decided my ignorance was more valuable than my truth. I sat in that motel room with all the evidence spread across the bed. And I made a decision. I wasn't coming back as Caroline the victim. I was coming back as Caroline the reckoning. On a Thursday morning in May, 6 weeks after my death, I walked into the Portland Police Department. Walked up to the front desk. Said, I need to report that I'm not actually dead. The officer stared at me. I'm sorry, what? My name is Caroline Foster. I was declared presumed dead 6 weeks ago. I'm here to correct that. It took 4 hours of interviews, paperwork, and verification. But by end of day, I was legally alive again. The police were furious. Threatened to charge me with filing a false report, wasting resources. I showed them the evidence of the affair, the financial planning, the conspiracy. I was fleeing a dangerous situation, I said. I didn't know who I could trust. They let me go with a warning. But they also called James. And my family. And the media. By that evening, the news was everywhere. Woman declared dead, returns, claims husband's affair drove her into hiding. I didn't go home. I went to a lawyer. Filed for divorce the next morning. Restraining order against James and Jessica. Submitted all the evidence, the messages, the financial planning, everything. And then I called my mother. She answered on the first ring. Caroline? Hi, Mom. She broke down. Sobbed so hard she couldn't speak. When she finally could, she said, Where are you? Are you safe? I'm safe. I'm sorry I put you through this. Why? She whispered. Why did you do this? Because I needed to know the truth. And I got it. Silence. Your father and I are getting divorced, she said. I know. He's devastated. He says he was trying to protect you. He was protecting himself. There's a difference. More silence. Can I see you? She asked. Soon. But not yet. I need to finish this first. Finish what? Making sure they all understand what they took from me. I hung up. The divorce took 4 months. James fought it at first. Tried to claim I'd abandoned the marriage, that my disappearance was evidence of mental instability. My lawyer buried him. We had the messages. The affair. The financial plotting. His parents' emails. In the end, he got nothing. I kept the house. Kept my savings. Got a settlement for emotional distress. He moved back in with his parents in Seattle. Jessica tried to reach out. Sent letters. Emails. Showed up at my work. I got a restraining order. She violated it twice. She's currently on probation. My father tried to reconcile. I met him once. At a coffee shop. Neutral ground. He cried. Said he was trying to protect me. I said, you protected your relationship with James. You protected the family image. You didn't protect me. He had no response. I haven't spoken to him since. My mother and I have lunch once a month now. It's awkward. Painful. But we're trying. She asked me once, do you regret it? Faking your death? I thought about it. I regret the pain I caused you, I said. But I don't regret learning the truth. Was it worth it? I don't know yet. 6 months after I came back, I got the promotion. Senior Finance Director. The raise. The stock options. Everything they'd been waiting for. Except now it was all mine. I bought a new house. Smaller. In a neighborhood where nobody knows my story. Started therapy. Real therapy. My therapist asked me, what did you learn from all this? That people will protect their comfort over your truth every single time. And what are you going to do with that knowledge? Never forget it. I'm sitting in my new living room as I finish this. It's been a year since I came back from the dead. I'm 38 years old. I'm divorced. I haven't spoken to my sister in 11 months. My relationship with my parents is fractured, possibly permanently. But I know the truth. And I'd rather live alone with the truth than live surrounded by people with comfortable lies. James tried to friend me on Facebook last month. I blocked him. Jessica sent flowers on my birthday. I donated them to a nursing home. My father sent a card that said I'm sorry in his handwriting. I threw it away. Because sorry is just a word. And I spent 15 years accepting words instead of demanding truth. Never again. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the lies people tell to protect themselves or the truths you've been avoiding, leave me a comment. Tell me, would you have come back? Or would you have stayed dead? And if you want more stories like this, check the description for one I think you'll love just as much. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.
If you like this story, do subscribe and like and do comment to let us know what type of stories you like to hear so that we can make up those. You can also share your own stories if you want them get uploaded along with your pick.